we're in the midst of VP auditions. For a while, I think we'd said that J.D. Vance should be the favorite. Doug Burgum is somehow still in the mix. Matt, you can probably explain that with some dollar signs, right?
Doug Burgum is a North Dakota billionaire who got his billion selling the company to none other than Bill Gates. So Trump would probably like some of that Bill Gates money. Thank you.
Well, I am the Vax guy, right? He is the Operation Warp Speed guy, so that's some synergy there. But another person who is auditioning for VP is Florida Republican Representative Byron Donalds. And earlier this week, he was at an event in Philadelphia called Congress, Cognac, and Cigars. Oh, baby. And he made some outrageous comments about Jim Crow that made headlines. And here he is on with CNN's Abby Phillip, who asked him here to clarify his statement. And you'll hear his statement at the beginning of this exchange, this interview.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York, and I want to get right to it tonight. One of Donald Trump's vice presidential contenders, Congressman Byron Donalds, he made some comments that has a lot of you talking and a lot of Democrats fired up. I'm going to speak with him live in just a couple of minutes, but here are the original remarks. They were made as a part of a pitch to black voters in Philadelphia, and I want you to hear it in its full context. Listen.
I grew up with my mom. My dad and my mom, things didn't work out. As an adult, I look at my father and I say, bro, I don't know what happened, but you my father and I love you. Wow. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Wow. But I'm gonna tell you this, growing up, the one thing I knew I wanted to do, and this is not about my father, this is about what I wanted to do, is I wanted to be a father to myself. Wow. And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture,
this is just Cosby stuff, by the way,
politics, is the reinvigoration of black families with younger black men and black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. That's right. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries as Wesley's contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth.
Now, we should note that many Democrats who jumped on Donalds today claimed that he said that blacks were, quote, better off. As you heard there, he didn't use those exact words in the clip, but the congressman joins me now to talk about that. Congressman, thank you for being here. I want to just focus on really the substance of what you were saying or trying to say in that clip. What did you mean by black families were more together during Jim Crow?
Frankly, what that is about the empirical fact that before the Great Society, before Lyndon Johnson's policies, there was more black families united. The marriage rate in black America was significantly higher before the Great Society.
Can we pause it for a sec? All right, so I wanted, good on Abby Phillip for giving the full context, because he's claiming that it was taken out of context. I think it was quite clear what he was trying to say there. He's saying that black families were better off before Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, which advanced civil rights for black people in this country, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was a part of desegregating our schools. Employment discrimination was outlawed at that the anti-democratic poll tax system that was particularly acute in the South, which took away from many Black people the right to participate in democracy. That was a part of the Great Society. The literacy tests that were a part of disenfranchising Black people. Like, that's the substance of what the Great Society was under LBJ. But notice how everything he is working backwards from is the notion of a nuclear family for Black Americans. And that is the kind of number one indicator of how better off people were during this time period, when in reality, that is not a good marker for prosperity, for equity, but it is a very conservative one.
I would
and
say,
that's the audience he's appealing to.
Why are these families torn apart? Is it because we got rid of a white supremacist legal regime, or is it because of the investment and oppression of people even post that? Like an extreme white supremacist backlash to civil rights being expanded,
And also, I don't place, because I'm not somebody who believes that marriage is necessary to put a society together. That is, again, a very conservative construction. There's also something to be said where, there were fewer divorce rates across the board. But if you were to ask women, were their rights more respected during that exact time period, regardless of race? They would not say that. This was pre-no-fault divorce in many instances. So that affected Black women as well. But Black families also perhaps had less freedom to I don't know, have a non-traditional family structure, because for the most part, they really had to stick together because they were getting lynched. That's the reality of the situation here. But
and you had a lot of communities being, torn apart because of migrations from the South,
right.
For instance, like that. There are a lot of things going on besides white people gave up Jim Crow, and now all of a sudden Black men don't know how to behave.
Keep going.
Significantly higher before the Great Society. The period of time that coincides with that, obviously, is Jim Crow era. And then after the Great Society, the marriage rate in the Black community plummeted significantly. The Great Society is a part of that reason, not completely, but it's definitely a part of that. And what you're seeing right now in America is a reformation of Black families in America. That's a good thing, not only for the Black community and for Black families, but it's also a good thing for the country.
So what was the point of tying together the Black family and Jim Crow specifically? Jim Crow, as you know, was a period of racial segregation, of racial terror. Why would you make that connection?
All I was doing was referring to the time periods when you talk about the historical.
No, you weren't.
Pause it. Yeah, you could say the early 20th century then.
Right. Right.
Why would you call it Jim Crow?
Periods when you talk about the historical timelines in America and coinciding with Black families and what the marriage rate in Black families are. The overarching point is obviously talking about what polling shows today, that about 20-25% of the Black vote, depending on what poll you're looking at, is leaning towards supporting Republicans and supporting President Trump. The corollary to that is that when you're in a family unit, husband and wife, living together, working together, thriving together, you're raising your kids, your thought process is now talking about building generational wealth. What am I leaving to my children? What kind of communities do I want my children to come up in? What are the educational opportunities? What's going on with the economy? How does, and
this is all structural.
How does foreign policy and all these other public policy issues flow into that? And so when you compare the terrible agenda of Joe Biden and what that's done to families in America, coinciding with the fact that you are seeing a reformation of Black families in America today, which is an absolutely wonderful thing and needs to continue. My view is it also coincides with a more conservative leaning and a more conservative mindset politically in those families.
One of the
All right. Well, again, the how many times did he say families in that instance? That is not a good marker or measure of how people are treated in society. I think the employment discrimination, the wage theft, the violence against Black people, all of that may be something that you want to put to the forefront instead of just basically taking it as a given that a traditional family structure of a man and wife is what is going to lead to Black prosperity. And that's why this era of the Great Society, which now he says Great Society, not Jim Crow, that is what like threatened that. And, you know, if you want to talk about what broke up Black families, it definitely wasn't civil rights. It was the fact that the neoliberal economic policies of what followed, and the drug war, for example, and the criminalization of poverty broke up Black families and Black men in particular were targeted by police and were separated from their families, which definitely undercuts the family structure, as opposed to like, you're just not pulling hard enough up by your bootstraps, buddy.
And I don't mean to belabor that. I don't want to get into it too much, but I just mean like, part of me also would submit too that like the idea of the family unit or structure as this like extremely benevolent unit and something that is like inherently good, like listen, this is not me saying that people can't have good or don't have good relationships with their families, or like that a family unit is bad, but like there are a lot of oppressive elements of the nuclear family and a lot of extenuating circumstances and variables that make it so that just like confining all social well-being or progress towards a family unit doesn't people fall through the cracks of that when family units aren't the picket fence with a pie baking on the window. Like it doesn't work like that.
No.
I mean, it can correlate to like the good life or whatever, but the thing is like Black capitalist apologists need to be told to shut up about generational wealth, because that is not the solution to any of this shit. You look at what happens in specifically the Black community with regards to general familial wealth. It goes up and down because of things like housing policy, not because of like culture and being more conservative and trying to like save better and have better financial literacy. That is cope. That is like selling your community. It's disgusting.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.